Ambassador Camilo Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor, and let me add my voice to those who have congratulated you on your ascension to the Vice Presidency of this meeting. I would also like to thank Ecuador for their statement at the beginning of this session and for their demonstrated flexibility in the manner in which they have discussed and debated their draft resolution to date. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has strong historical ties to the United Kingdom, and one of the many legacies of these ties is an understanding and deep appreciation for the principles of international law, adherence to the rule of law, and the peaceful and diplomatic resolution of disputes between states. Our belief that the modern United Kingdom shares these values is the bedrock upon which St. Vincent and the Grenadines maintains its strong relations with the United Kingdom and has been the basis of our continued enthusiastic participation in the Commonwealth of Nations. We also share a deep and fraternal bonds of cooperation and solidarity with Ecuador and recognize the historical realities that have shaped our region's appreciation for the concept of asylum, the principle of inviolability, and the role that these concepts and principles have played in the political development of Latin America and the wider world. We begin, therefore, by reiterating the call captured in this resolution, namely that all parties to this dispute continue to negotiate in good faith, in an environment free of rancor, of threat, to resolve this dispute peacefully and diplomatically. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is not interested in seeing this debate devolve into a back and forth over the presence or absence of a threat against Ecuador. In the spirit of positive engagement, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is willing to accept both that Ecuador perceived a threat in the UK's correspondence, as well as the United Kingdom's recent assurance that no such threat was intended against Ecuador. And we applaud Ecuador's willingness to eliminate its insistence on the word in its draft resolution. However, what is clear to St. Vincent and the Grenadines is the fact that the liberal interpretation of the United Kingdom's Diplomatic and Consular Premises Act does constitute a threat, not to Ecuador, but to the very principle of sovereignty and diplomatic inviolability. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a small diplomatic presence in the United Kingdom, and we have labored under the apparent misunderstanding that the Diplomatic and Consular Premises Act limited the United Kingdom Secretary of State's actions in a number of important ways. First, and most importantly, the Act limits the Secretary of State's actions by saying that his actions must be in compliance with international law. Second, the Act advises the Secretary of State to consider 3 additional issues in determining whether to take the extraordinary step of withdrawing acceptance of diplomatic premises. He may consider 1, the safety of the British public, 2, national security, and 3, town and country planning, zoning laws, in other words. In the matter currently at the crux of the dispute, I've heard no allegation that Mr. Assange is a threat to Britain's national security, even if he is guilty of the crimes that he must face in the Kingdom of Sweden. Similarly, the United Kingdom, which granted him bail during his proceedings in the UK, would have difficulty convincing us that he's a threat to public safety. The zoning caveat, of course, is a non-issue in this case. As such, we consider it somewhat regrettable that the act in question was cited as the basis for the actions alluded to by the United Kingdom. Similarly, we believe that a failure to respond to such an allusion would create a fundamental and unacceptable weakening of the principle of diplomatic inviolability. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, like all states in this room, is deeply committed to the principle of inviolability, both of person and premises. This principle is particularly important, as my brother from Dominica alluded, to small and vulnerable states that lack the power or influence to otherwise ensure respect of national dignity, state equality, sovereignty, and the unimpeded exercise of our foreign policy. Our state has had recent experience with the practical applicability of diplomatic inviolability, and we have emerged fortified in the belief that the Vienna Conventions of 1961 and 63 must be strictly complied with. We reject attempts to parse, limit, or otherwise reinterpret the parameters of that sacrosanct principle. In fact, even the International Court of Justice, in the aftermath of its decision in the famous 1950 asylum case, subsequently declined to order Colombia to release the asylee or to authorize Peru to seize the asylee. And as we know, he remained in the premises for, I believe, 5 years. Indeed, parenthetically, even the asylum case, which took a rather dim view of the blanket right to grant asylum, stated that, and I'll quote it, "In principle, therefore, asylum cannot be opposed to the opposition of justice. However, an exception to this rule can occur if, in the guise of justice, arbitrary action is substituted for the rule of law. Such would be the case if the administration of justice were corrupted by measures clearly prompted by political aims." And this, we believe, is the crux of Ecuador's decision to grant the asylum. And we think that the basis is sound and that the recourse should not be to courts or to force, but to diplomatic engagement and interaction. In light of these considerations, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is comfortable with the resolution as it currently stands and is willing to support it. However, we note with great appreciation Ecuador's willingness to continue to consult with the aim of achieving the greatest possible consensus within our group. We hope that the flexibility of Ecuador and the latest statements by the United Kingdom are promising harbingers of renewed and re-energized negotiations between those two states. This resolution, we believe, will give welcome impetus to those negotiations between the states at issue. Thank you very much, Mr. President.